I, Mr. Avinash Suryavanshi, Assistant Professor from BS College of Pharmacy, feel privileged to welcome you all on behalf of the organizing committee to the 4th day of 2 week, 1 week online and 1 week offline AICT sponsored ATAL Faculty Development Program on Research and Innovation Ecosystem in Academia. Need of Hour, organized by BS College of Pharmacy, Chembur, Mumbai. A warm welcome to today's resource person and all the participants who are integral part of this faculty development program. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Rajeshri Bhirlekar, co-coordinator of this FDP, and Dr. Anita Aire, organizing committee coordinator, and all the members of the organizing committee from BS College of Pharmacy. So let's begin today's session with an auspicious note and request you all to sit in silence for 2 minutes. Next we'll move to the felicitation. It will be my pleasure to welcome and invite Dr. Saugandha Madam on the stage. I request respected Bhirlekar ma'am, co-coordinator of ATAL FDP program, to come on the dais and felicitate our resource person with the sapling. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to today's speaker for the session. Respected Dr. Saugandha Madam is currently working as a director and co-founder Edhaa Innovation Private Limited, Mumbai. Dr. Saugandha Madam completed her B.Pharm and M.Pharm in Pharmaceuticals from JSS College of Pharmacy, Mysore. Also awarded with University Gold Medal for Outstanding Student in M.Pharm. Completed PhD from Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. She is currently working in formulation design for the development of novel healthcare, diagnostic kit, and medical devices. She has also worked as a research scientist with Adventist Therapeutic Limited, Bangalore, in the area of drug metabolism and pharmacokinetic and clinical pharmacology. Madam has been awarded with various awards. She has received the Indian Oil Startup Fund 2022 from the Indian Oil Corporation Limited for the commercialization of validated point-of-care diagnostic solution to improve maternal health. Also received the Nidhi Prayas Funding 2022 by Department of Science and Technology, organized by for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, signed IIT Bombay. Also received the first prize at the ISP India Student Research Paper Competition 2021 for the development of Insta Nano Amphotericin B, a simple, scalable, in situ technique for amphotericin B solid lipid nanoparticle preparation with high safety and efficacy. She has been awarded the Canada Indian Healthcare Innovation Award 2021 by Canada India Foundation for the development of Ultra Freeze, a non-electric alternative for freezer for the last mile distribution of COVID-19 vaccine. Received the Grand Challenge Exploration Award 2019 funded by BIAC and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for the development of point-of-care digital device for the diagnosis of nutritional imbalances in malnutrition. Madam has been selected for in-resident program at Rashtrapati Bhavan from 19 to 23rd March 2018. Ma'am also won several awards and recognition to mention a few. First prize winner of NanoSpark X Nanotechnology Innovation Contest by India Nano 2017 Bangalore. Also selected for ITC South International Travel Grant 2018 by DST Government of India. Also awarded with Gandhian Young Technological Innovation by Srishti Award 2017 in the Future Innovation category at the Festival of Innovation at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Also received Bharat Srishti grant of 15 lakh for the design of portable cold sterilization device. Received the second prize at the 8th edition of the Student Entrepreneurship Challenge organized by Association of Biotechnology-led Enterprises, Eagle India 2017. Also received Best Paper Award at Nano Science Technology 2016 organized by Punjab University, Chandigarh. Based on excellent academic performance, also awarded Inspire 2030 Fellowship by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India for pursuing doctoral study. Awarded with CEO Award for excellent contribution in drug metabolism and pharmacokinetic department for US FDA audit September 2021. Ma'am also received University Gold Medal from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Bangalore, Karnataka. And Ma'am also completed various research projects and currently working on a project associated with children malnutrition from micronutrient deficiency. She is working towards a rapid point of care diagnostic kit for understanding the exact deficient element at an early stage so that the design time will provide therapeutic intervention. Madam also believes in sharing knowledge. She has delivered various guest lectures like at CDR College of Engineering, Hyderabad, Bharati Pune, IIT Madras, IIT Bombay. Also, she has presented various research work and also received several awards for the same. She has 8 publications and attended several conferences and seminar. Along with that, she has been granted an Indian patent on the kit for visual detection of calcium in biological fluid. And the second patent in the pipeline applied is a device for conserving low temperature. Today, madam will brief us on the topic idea to product and entrepreneur journey. So, in this, madam will be talking about her journey from being a student to an entrepreneur. She will also introduce the audience to the innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem concepts such as design, thinking, ideation, opportunity, identification, prototyping, and remove the misconception about the entrepreneurship. This involved an entrepreneurship related wrong belief. The talk will help us to understand the typical journey of startup founder, highlight challenges faced in the journey and the mindset attitude required in founder to stay the course. However, beyond the challenge and hardship, how founder find the journey extremely rewarding and why. The session will help us to understand the role of prototype in building a product, what the prerequisite for building a prototype, what kind of resources, facilities are required to build a prototype. This session will also help participants in understanding the basic knowledge about entrepreneurship and startup. Also, it helps academicians to support the entrepreneurship with such a startup projects and different resources available for an entrepreneur or academician. Also, tip on how to inculcate a mindset for innovation in your field of work. So, this session will benefit us in many ways. So, now I request Dr. Saugandha madam to start with the session. Welcome, ma'am, and congratulations.
So good morning all of you. So thank you for the kind introduction, sir. And I will just introduce myself shortly. I am Saugandha. I am director and co-founder at a startup called Edhaa Innovations, and our offices are currently in Sain IIT Bombay. So the topic that I will be covering today would be idea to product, and I will take you through my journey as an entrepreneur. So I hope that you will learn something from my experiences that I'll be sharing. And I'll try to keep the conversation a little interactive because otherwise in 2 hours people will be bored to death from listening to just one person speaking. So my slides also would be more of illustrations. So the major objectives that I'll be covering, looking at the heading, as faculty, I understand you will be thinking that what do you need if you don't want to be an entrepreneur? Why should you go through this session? But you all know that today academicians are playing a very, very important role in building startups. Whether it is anywhere across the globe, academia plays a very important role, and I believe in the power of that academicians have that they can give to their students. And I have been passed on that power, so I really want to motivate other people around me. And secondly, the other objective is that even the government is pushing a lot towards academia being trained on entrepreneurial skills so that they can invite that kind of culture and environment and ecosystem in their students. And who knows, one of your students might be a successful entrepreneur tomorrow. So also looking at the grants and fundings that are available, government is pushing towards teachers taking up such kind of funding to develop products, so that that product can, maybe you are not going to take it to commercialization, but if that product has potential, it can be taken by some company. So that actually saves time for both the company and it is helpful for the faculty as such, because overall they will have more funds to work with. They can add resources to their laboratory and get better skill sets. So the major objectives today of the session would be, I'll be sharing some basic knowledge about entrepreneurship and startups. I hope my voice is audible. It's clear? Yeah. So I'll be sharing some basic knowledge about entrepreneurship in general and startups, and what are the resources that are available for entrepreneurs or academicians, how academicians can support entrepreneurship, and tips on how to inculcate an innovative mindset in your area of work. And I'll try to keep the conversation very relevant to academia. I'll not put in jargons which are not related to you or relevant to you. So this is a short video that I'll start with. I'm not sure whether the audio is there or not. It is okay, no problem. You don't need the audio. You can just go through the video. So this video is basically about people, passionate people who are trying to build something. So there are different examples that have been shown here. And they are being mocked for trying something weird. So the question is, where would we be without entrepreneurs? Because these are those people who bring about change, who bring about revolution. They try to revive obsolete systems with new technology, with revolutionary technology. And in the process, they face a lot of challenges. But they are undaunted, and that is why we have what we have today in terms of the different kinds of technologies that are available at our disposal. So with this, I'll just talk a little about my journey as an entrepreneur, how I actually happened to enter. I think 10 years back, I would have laughed at myself if I would have thought that 10 years down the line, I would decide to be an entrepreneur, because that was nowhere in my line of thoughts ever. So this was when I was finishing my master's. And then I got campus placed in a R&D setup. So I had always been very passionate about R&D. So I decided to join a company. I started working there. After working for a few years, I decided to upgrade my knowledge, go for my PhD, and I got the DST Inspire fellowship. And that was good. At that point, I thought I was always very passionate about teaching. So I thought that I'll finish my PhD, maybe do my postdoc, and then I'll join academics. So that was my plan, and I was like, I have figured out my life. But little did I know, when I joined my PhD at ICT, my world is going to be completely shaken, and I would see a completely different kind of perspective. It would change my entire career trajectory. So when I joined ICT, I saw that ICT had a very pro-entrepreneurship kind of an environment. And ICT has given so many successful entrepreneurs to the country. So when I saw that, it really motivated me. And plus my mentor and PhD guide, Professor Edhaa, she herself promotes innovation and creative thinking among her students a lot. And that kind of environment actually triggered something in me, and she always motivated us to think differently, think out of the box in whatever research you are doing. She always told us that if you are not getting a result, it is okay. Just come and tell me about it. And I feel that in my research work, of the 3 projects that I had done, I think the one which I got negative results was probably, for me, it was my best research because we found something very, very different and very innovative. So that kind of mindset basically changed something in me, and she motivated us to attend various student entrepreneurship competitions. And there, when I saw other students who were my peers and now they are running successful companies, and the way, the passion with which they spoke about the change that they want to see in society, that actually was my moment of growth. I felt that if a student who was yesterday doing PhD, maybe my colleague or my peer, today is running a successful company. So why can I not try to do that as a career option? And then I actually started thinking seriously about taking up entrepreneurship as a career. So now then we started discussing, having conversations with my very close friend and colleague that time, and now my co-founder, Dr. Edhaa. So we started discussing about this over lunch and snacks and evening tea, and but always those discussions would used to end up with like, we don't have any business knowledge as such. We are researchers, we are passionate about what we do, but zero knowledge, zero background. We don't come from business families. Will we make it? And in this duration, what happened was, one of our very close common friend, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer and he was undergoing chemotherapy. So we used to go to the hospital to visit him, and we used to see him actually used to struggle, like it was somewhere around 2016 or something, and before his chemo sessions, he used to be taken to the pathology lab to get tests done, and then he used to be brought again to the hospital, wait for the results to come before his chemotherapy. And every session used to be so painful for him. And despite all that pain, he had to go to his pathology lab, get the tests done before his each session. So we used to think that there should be something available to help such people. And that thought stuck with us. Then by the year 2018 or so, 1mg and all those kinds of platforms came up, and then blood collection was not a big challenge as such. But even in a city like Metro, this was the condition. So you can imagine in other cities, smaller cities, what would be the condition there. So once 1mg came in, we again started discussing that if blood can be collected patient side, why can't some tests also be done patient side? And that idea stuck to us, and we decided to start digging into this. We started talking to hospitals, clinicians, and all the possible customers and people in the ecosystem. And then we started designing an idea around it. We started designing a solution around that. And as we went forward, by the end of, when we were almost nearing the end of our PhD, we had to take that decision whether we want to take up jobs, whether we want to do this full time. And that was a very, very difficult decision because we both were already married. We had our fair share of responsibilities, and taking up, like, it is very difficult to convince your families as to why you want to take this up when you're almost finishing your PhD. You can take up secure jobs, and now you want to just go into an unknown territory altogether. So that decision was difficult, but I felt that we were quite sure about what we wanted to do. And when people started applying for placements, we were starting to apply for funding options because we needed money to start the company. So at the end of our PhD, almost by the end of our PhD, we put in all our savings, and that was how Edhaa Innovations was born, our first kitty. And in the year 2020, we were finally, we got our first breakthrough moment. We got our first funding from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Byron, which actually sealed the deal, and we could actually take up a space. We could start our own company. We could, get instruments for ourselves, and so things started rolling forward. So, what we do at Edhaa, it is basically we are trying to solve a small. I'll just go through a video. This video played from there.
But the pain of losing someone unnecessarily because you didn't have the basic tools you need, there are no words for that.
When a patient walks into a healthcare facility, the first step is to figure out what's making them sick. What are their symptoms? How long have they had them? But in many countries, clinicians don't have access to even the basic diagnostic tools and laboratory tests they need to accurately diagnose common health problems.
But it's the rates of the undiagnosed that have researchers concerned.
Just the thing that we try to stress is that early detection, early prevention.
Vast distances and isolated communities make testing people extremely difficult.
Every medical decision depends on a proper diagnostics.
Unfortunately, these small facilities have no equipment.
Without diagnostics, primary care providers often have no choice but to use scatter-shot therapies. Even simple tests like hemoglobin, malaria, pregnancy tests, HIV and syphilis tests are not available in 98% of the facility.
While in vitro diagnostic tests influence approximately 70% of healthcare decisions, only 3 to 5% of healthcare budgets go to diagnostic services. Over the years, diagnostic testing has made an enormous impact on the health of patients around the world. Investing in diagnostics is cost-effective for the healthcare system. It permits accurate and speedy treatment of patients and can dramatically reduce future complications and hospitalizations. It helps prevent overprescription of therapeutics, helping reduce the fast rise of drug-resistant superbugs. And investing in diagnostic infrastructure, labs, technicians, equipment, helps us prepare for outbreaks when they do occur.
So this is the basic idea that we are pursuing at Edhaa. So at Edhaa, we are trying to work towards facilitating or bringing a paradigm change in the way monitoring is done. So we want to bring that change in health monitoring by facilitating or providing economical diagnostic healthcare solutions which can drastically improve accessibility as well as affordability of testing. So with this, I'll just give you a small demo of one of the devices that is currently going into field testing now. So this is how it's a platform kind of a device which can perform multiple tests patient side and within minutes. So this is a basic prototype. So we call it Tattva Shod because it's about Tattva means element and Shod means finding. So it's a very simple way to just get results on the go. You can just put the test strip inside and you get the results. So this project is currently being funded by the Gates Foundation and BILAC. So the value that this kind of a device, and there are many other devices that we are working on, this is one of them. So the value that this kind of a device can provide would be in terms of providing evidence-based management patient side. It can provide testing anytime, anywhere, within minutes. It can also pick up asymptomatic cases before it actually progresses into a chronic situation. And overall, it improves interventions, the cost of intervention and the time that is required, and overall democratized testing and disease monitoring. These are few of our patrons who are supporting us in our journey, and we are really grateful to them. Now coming to the discussion for today. So it is on startup and entrepreneurship and how it is relevant to academia. Now before I begin, I would like to give you a brief difference between a small business and a startup. So they are not the same. A startup is not a small business. So a small business, for example, I'll give you an example of a small restaurant. So that is a small business. So they are more permanently established. They take up less risky projects and they follow a more traditional method and their business model, etc. are more traditional. On the other hand, startups are more temporary in nature. They take up incredibly risky and innovative projects and they have very non-traditional methods of financing and the strategies that they use, the business model that they use. Everything is a little non-traditional and is completely different from what is currently existing. So with that understanding, let us take a look at how many startups are there currently. So India is the third largest in the world in terms of the startups. and it is one of the fastest growing. And currently there are around more than 41,000 startups, which is expected to increase in a couple of years to more than 1 lakh. It will be creating almost more than 3 million jobs, and it will give you more than 150 unicorns. So anybody among the audience who understands what a unicorn is, you must have heard it a lot in the last couple of years. If anybody has any idea what a unicorn startup means? No? So unicorns are basically startups which have a valuation of more than 1 billion USD. So India has seen a lot of unicorns in the last couple of years. So almost 38 unicorns have been added in just 1 year. Last year, 12 unicorns were added. And in a couple of years, it is expected to increase to more than 150. So you can imagine the kind of fast pace that India is taking up in the startup ecosystem. In terms of valuation, by 2025, Indian startups are expected to gross 1 trillion USD. And COVID actually it created a lot of problems for small companies, but it gave a lot of boost to healthcare and healthcare startups overall. So in India currently there are close to around 7,000 healthcare startups, and among them health tech startups contribute around 50%, around 3,000 somewhere health tech startups are there. And by 2030 almost 40 million jobs can be created by such startups. So that is a very big boost to the economy. And looking at the current unemployment scenario, this is a very, very big requirement for the country. And in terms of valuation, it is expected that healthcare startups in India will contribute to 10.6 billion by 2025. The major area where healthcare startups are working is mostly in telemedicine. Take for example Practo. Practo is a telemedicine kind of a platform. Then you have self-help management enablers. You must have heard of apps like Healthify Me and such. So these are self-help management enablers. Then you have point-of-care diagnostics. Like in COVID, you have seen self-check COVID tests. So those come under point-of-care diagnostics. Then there are affordable medical devices. Again, COVID gave us a lot of devices which probably we wouldn't have used on a daily basis, like a pulse oximeter, which was available for a much lower price. So those are affordable medical devices examples. Then there are platforms for patient awareness and education. And then you have electronic health records and analytics, which is taking up a huge market currently with AI and ML and other kind of things coming up. This is going to be the next big boom in the healthcare arena. Now, why is entrepreneurship important in the first place?
Which then results in more and more development. For example, a few IT companies founded the Indian IT industry in the 1990s. Businesses and associated industries then flourished. Entrepreneurs also added national income. Existing businesses may remain confined to their markets and hit a glass ceiling when it comes to building income. But new products or technologies create new markets and new wealth, and increased employment and higher earnings contribute to a nation's taxes and spending. Further, entrepreneurs create social change. They break tradition with unique inventions that reduce dependence on obsolete systems. Smartphones and their apps, for example, have revolutionized work and play across the globe. Finally, entrepreneurs can invest in community projects, can help charities and other good causes, further developing ventures beyond their own. Bill Gates, for example, used his money to boost education and public health.
So the thing is, it is not just about economics, it is about bringing a lot of other changes around the entire society, basically a societal reform. So this is the power that startups have. So what do you mean by entrepreneurship? If I put it simply, it is solving a problem which has a market value. And say you have a passion project, you have an idea, you have identified a problem, and you design a solution for it. And if that solution actually affects a lot of people around you, it can improve condition of some people around you, and you can turn it into a business, that is entrepreneurship. So basically it is solving problems of people around you. Now, there's something called as an entrepreneurial mindset, and I believe that obviously an entrepreneur requires it is a mandatory thing for them, but for people, even in this competitive world, everybody needs this skill sets. So a successful entrepreneur has a growth kind of a mindset. Any kind of failure is not a difficulty for them. They see it as an opportunity to grow. They feel that because of that failure, they can add to their skill set. So that is the kind of mindset that is called as an entrepreneurial mindset. And like you will agree with me that it is not important just for an entrepreneur, it is for everybody. So I believe that for me, these are 5 important points that that an entrepreneurial mindset person should have. One is determination to stick to any situation and just see to it that you get through. Second is accountability, because when you are in a job, you are assigned some tasks and you perform those tasks. But when you are an entrepreneur, you have to design your day's tasks, you have to assign tasks to people around you. So you have to be proactive in doing that. And you need to be accountable for the day. You need to be accountable for the goals that you set and the results of those decisions. So accountability is my second point. Third is resilience and adaptability. You should be adaptable to any situation. You should be adaptable to change. Fourth is curiosity. And lastly, empathy. Empathy, why? Empathy for your understanding your customers' needs, empathy to manage the human resources in a better way. And in fact, all people you are dealing with, empathy is very important. It is very, very underrated because you feel that a leader will not just, cannot be empathetic, but you will not understand the power of empathy that it can, or the power of change that it can cause. So how to achieve this entrepreneurial mindset? First and foremost, set clear goals with timelines. That this is the goal that I aim to achieve by this time. Second is practice being decisive. Like you, as an entrepreneur, you have to take a lot of decisions. Not just an entrepreneur, even if you are a professional, you have to take a lot of decisions which will impact your next steps. So you need to practice being decisive. Third, redefine failure. Failure should be a stepping stone and not the end. So that is a kind of mindset that you should be in always. Fourth is facing your fears. As an entrepreneur, you have to do uncomfortable things day in, day out. I have been a researcher all my life, and then suddenly I decide to be an entrepreneur. And there are things I do not like. It is completely out of my comfort zone, but I have to learn those things. So that is facing your fears every day. And lastly, remain curious, because that is where the ideas come. You have to be observant. You have to be observant around what is going on around you. So, if I have to define entrepreneurship in the form of a story, this would probably be it.
Trees like other plants and trees. It requires nurturing through water, fertile soil and sunshine. If you plant the tree and give it enough water, the right soil and sunlight, you won't see any visible growth in the first year. If you continue nurturing it correctly, you won't see any difference for the second, third or fourth year either. In the 5th year, something amazing will happen. The bamboo tree will grow 80 to 90 feet in just 5 to 6 weeks. But let's be serious. Does the bamboo really grow 80 to 90 feet in 5 to 6 weeks? If the bamboo tree did not grow its roots for a strong foundation in the first few years, it could never grow so high above the ground. So, how does this relate to our lives? We all have dreams and goals. You may be building a career, a business, learning a new skill, or just creating a better life in general. No matter what your dream or goal is, it's always very difficult to start with. You may be putting lots of effort in. You may have spent a lot of time, but nothing seems to be happening. There are no visible changes that you would like to be seeing. It would be very easy to give up on your dreams and goals in the same way you could with the bamboo tree in the first 4 years, because there is nothing to see in terms of visible growth. Also, you may not notice the change instantly, but like the network of roots, the growth is happening. Remember, success doesn't come right away, and every situation and individual are different. Most importantly, it requires a strong foundation. Working hard towards your goals and dreams, building a solid internal foundation, developing your inner strength while overcoming challenges will put you firmly on the path to success.
So basically, this is basically what is entrepreneurship all about. You don't see any growth in the first few years, but you need to stick through it. If you stick through it, you will see tremendous growth at the end. So that is the process, that is the resilience that you need to have and to see the success. And that is why startups, you don't see so many startups succeeding because that process is very, very challenging to keep through. So with this, if I have to, say for example, a person who is starting for the first time, they have no idea, no background of how to go ahead. So how do you begin? So when you start off, you have certain initial assumptions. Like I'll take my example. We had certain initial assumptions about the problem that we had set out to solve. So identifying the problem is the first thing which is important. So this is very important. Then there will be some assumptions around the customer. So you will be knowing that probably based on this solution that you have thought of, this could be your customer segment. Then you will also be knowing that currently what are the solutions available. So they will be your competitors. And then you will have some value propositions which will be very relevant to what your solution can give. So value proposition is all about what value your product or solution provides to the end user or customer. So these are your initial assumptions, and you need to first, before you start off, you need to go and validate all of these. So it should be that way that you go validate the problem, the customer, the competitors, and the value that you can provide, and then go about product design. So in the design thinking process, this is a typical design thinking process stream. So it starts with empathizing to a problem. So you conduct research, you talk to people around you who could be your customers or users. You understand their problem, actually try and understand what they are facing on a daily basis. Then define your research, go back, think about what you have heard from them and try to see how you can design a solution around their problem. So that is defining your research. Then comes ideation. So now once you have defined their problem and you have a basic idea of what you can do to solve their problem, then comes ideation where you ideate what you want to design for your solution or your prototype. And then next stage is prototyping. So you actually go and make that product or solution. Next is testing, and lastly is implementation. So this is a very generic form of a design thinking process, and this process is not just for entrepreneurs. Even as faculty, I think you will appreciate the process that this is the ideal thing that goes through in your mind when you are designing a project. So up till this point, prototyping stage, all academicians go through this process. Testing, yes, part of it is done by us, but there are some things like scale up, technology transfer and such. So those part of the things are covered by an external agency maybe. And then the implementation is completely different because it will include the commercialization, etc. Therefore, if you look at the process, there are some things you can do and there are some things that you need help with. So there is something called as a startup ecosystem because startups are small entities. They cannot do everything on their own like a big company. So they have support systems around them and that constitutes the startup ecosystem. So you have support organizations, you have various research organizations helping them, you have service providers, funding opportunities, universities, big companies. So you have mentors, investors, advisors, everybody is part of their startup ecosystem. And that is where academicians play the role. Because most of startups come through some academic background where they have conducted some research and they want to take it forward. So if the research is in line with industry requirements or is in line with customer needs and that problem needs solving, then the implementation part becomes much easier. Rather than if you have an idea which doesn't have any customers as such, that you will understand after product design. So this is called as a startup ecosystem. So if we have to define the steps that you have to undergo. So first, like you saw in the design thinking process, is your idea. So how do you go about idea identification and opportunity identification? So first, it could be things that you wish existed but you cannot find it. Second, it could be needs of people around you, like you see some elderly patient or person who's suffering from Alzheimer's. You think that I should design something for this person. So that is needs of people around you. That could be your problem identification opportunity. It could be improving existing products or services. Like say for example, Uber and Ola. Taxis were always available, autos were always available, but they identified an opportunity to improve existing products and solutions. Or for that matter, Zomato or Swiggy. Then there is better access to info or products. Like for example, Urban Company. They decided that everything was available, but they made it accessible to people. So these are examples. So these are ways that you can identify problems around you, and that is only by observing things around you can you identify such things. Now, one of the major reasons that startups fail is that there is no market need. Almost 50% of the reason contributes to no market need for that product. Hence, customer is the key. So you really need to understand who your customer is going to be before you design a product around it. So there are a few points that I learned in my journey that these are of prime importance when you are identifying or trying to talk to your customer. Every solution is designed for a specific problem and it is never the other way around. So as academicians, I want you all to make this in your list of agenda, when you are designing projects, is that try and understand what problem you are trying to solve. This thing has been introduced by a lot of universities now. The IITs are already doing it, but a lot of other universities are also taking this up in a big way. Is that at the beginning of a project, maybe for a PhD project that can be done, or for a longer duration, but for a master's project also, if they have 10 days or 15 days before they start the project, they go and talk to the people who would be affected by their solution. So if they get to talk to them, they actually will understand a lot about what they want to design in future. I'll also be talking about some ideas which you as faculty of pharmacy can implement in your curriculum or in your projects that you take up in future. But this kind of a setup has been taken up by a lot of universities and they are seeing a lot of good results from that because the student is more sensitized to what he is going to work on. So this is first and foremost. Second is, customer is a person and not a brick and mortar building. So empathy is very important when you are talking to a customer. They need to feel that you are interested when you are talking to them. And you need to actually understand the problem that they are facing. Third is power of effective storytelling and articulation. I believe that story is the best way to communicate. And you might not be remembering a lot of things I have told in this lecture, but you will be remembering photos and videos from what I have shared. So that is the power of effective storytelling. If you cannot communicate what you want to achieve to the other person, then that person will not understand the problem you are trying to solve. So there are many times in customer conversations, it so happens that it goes to dead ends. Like you feel that the customer, ये क्या बोल रहा है, तो मेरे solution से कुछ लेना देना ही नहीं है. Because the solution is fixed in your head. You want every discussion to be going around that solution. So you stop listening to the problem that he's talking about. You just try to get the conversation towards your solution. It should be the other way around. Just keep the solution out of your head. Just listen to that person, what problem he's facing. Then go back and try and see whether your product can fit into that. If not, modify it. So that is why it is very mandatory that you do this at the beginning rather than at the end of product development. Next is be unbiased when you are interpreting your customer conversations. Because it so happens that you tend to just leave out the things that don't match with you. Because you're not listening to things which you are interested. You think that ये सब मेरा product कहाँ जाएगा फिर ये सब के बीच में. So please be unbiased when you are listening to somebody. And lastly, there is an entire ecosystem around every customer. So if you are talking to your target customer, there are people, there will be competitors who will not want your product to be reaching the market because they are already there in the market. There can be other suppliers who have already have tie-ups with the customer. The customer, why will that customer buy your product and not the other product that is available? So you need to find that niche where you can play. So you need to talk to each and every stakeholder of that ecosystem so as to understand the whole picture. Maybe not relevant for academicians who are designing solutions. For them, the customer, I think, would be enough to start with. That can be done by a detailed whoever is taking the idea forward. But this should be kept in mind. The next two steps are related to the product designing, the research and the product design. So how to go about that? So there's something called as design and prototyping, and here we learned a very important and interesting fact which is called as the lean startup methodology. So this is a global phenomenon now. It is a concept that is called as the lean startup methodology, which talks about build, measure, learn. So traditional companies, big companies, what they do is they build something, they take it to the market, then they get feedback. But startups don't have that kind of resource. They cannot fail at the market at the last stage because they have put in a lot of money. So lean startup methodology basically talks about building a very, very basic course product, taking it to the user, get their feedback, learn from their feedback, iterate on the product, again get a better version for them, go to them, measure their feedback. So this is a cycle till you achieve MVP, which is a minimum viable product, which is something that the customer is happy with. So until and unless you arrive at that MVP, keep going in loop till you get a product which the customer likes. But don't go too much in the loop because every customer will keep on telling that ये feature add कर दो, ये feature. You should have some ceiling for that too. So when you are taking a product idea to a market, to the product level, so it's basically starts with, this is a very basic generic idea. So if, since your faculty related to pharmacy, I'll take an example of a nanoparticle for example. So say for example in COVID, Remdesivir was being given to a lot of patients and Remdesivir had a lot of side effects. So there were a lot of people who thought of designing nanoparticles of Remdesivir which could be targeted to the desired site, which would decrease the toxicity overall. So that is the ideation phase. Then next is designing, that is the idea feasibility, which is called as the proof of concept. So proof of concept basically means that you go and design nanoparticles in the lab and see whether Remdesivir can be successfully entrapped in the nanoparticles in a desired particle size or whatever. So that is your idea feasibility or point proof of concept stage. The next is prototype. So then you go and test those nanoparticles, maybe efficacy testing, maybe some basic testing, and you start seeing good results around that. So that is the prototyping stage. Then you have the minimum viable product or MVP stage. So once you have designed those particles, you go and give it to the clinicians, maybe for field trials or clinical trials, and you get feedback from them. What is the result that they are seeing? So that is the MVP stage, and then maybe till this point, every academicians can handle it up to this point. Beyond that, it is up to the faculty. They can either take it forward in the form of a company, or they can give it a license out the technology to somebody else who could take it forward for the pilot and the production stage. Next is if till the product design phase can be done in academic institutes. Beyond that, if you want to set up your own entity or your company, then you have to work out the legal stuff. So you have to first of all go for patenting because that is mandatory. You go and talk to people about your idea and solution. Company incorporation, and you have to take product approvals. So in this, if you want to incorporate your company, there are two things that a founder needs to do on an urgent basis. First is deciding a name for the company, because it seems very nice, okay, we decide name, but it is very, very difficult. When we were deciding a name for the company, none of the names were available. There are so many names that are registered that you actually don't find names available. So this is a very, very big problem, and plus it has to be available, catchy, simple, easy to pronounce, and so many criteria. So deciding on the name is one thing, so you decide 3-4 names, and you need to, second thing is, what kind of company do you want to create? So there are different kinds of companies, like you have a one-person company, there's something called as a partnership company, there's something called as a private limited company, if it is an NGO, it is a social-based company. So there are different structures for every company. So based on what you want to achieve in future from your company, based on that you need to decide what kind of company you want to register. So these are two things that you have to do from your end. Then you hire a good CACS and get the process done from them. They will help you in everything else. And these are few links. If anybody is interested, they can go check these links out for more details. Next important thing is the business plan. So business plan is basically the blueprint of your entire business. It talks about the executive summary, your idea, the problem that you are trying to solve, your solution. It talks about details of your business, market analysis, financial projections, how much are you expected to be grossing, how much funding you will be needing year on year, what kind of organizational structure do you have, and marketing plans, etc. So this is why is this important? It is important because first and foremost, it will be a guide for your business. It will set goals for you so that you know where you need to achieve at a certain point. And when you share it with people like investors or whoever is funding your project or who even employees who you are hiring, they will be in sync with the vision that you have. You as a founder, you might have a lot of things in your mind. You have a vision for your company, but the other people may not understand your vision. So when you give them this detailed document to go through, they share your vision because they know exactly what you are aiming at 5 years down. So this is a roadmap for you. Next important thing is raising funds, which is where again a lot of startups fail because if you don't have the money, you cannot go anywhere for that matter. So there are different modes by which a startup can be financed. In the initial stages, it is mostly bootstrapping. So bootstrapping means that you put in your money, take money from friends and family or whoever is ready to give you money. So that is bootstrapping. Second is an incubator. In early stages, incubators, there are a lot of incubators available. They are basically technology incubators who help you with progress further. So they also give you some kind of small amounts to start with. Then there is something called as crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is basically raising money from people. So you set a target, you basically campaign about your idea online and you start getting donations from people, and then you basically achieve a goal. But this only works for ideas which have a social impact. So it will not work for all kinds of ideas. And the pro for this is that obviously you don't have to dilute your equity, you don't need to give anything in return to get the money from them. So the other thing is venture capital, which is investors basically. So they are basically people who have a lot of money which they want to invest in small companies, and based on they assess the startup how much it can grow in future. Based on that, they put in their money and they take stakes or shares of that company. And down the years, as your company does well, they get money in return. But here you can get a lot of money at one time. And plus you get the networking that those people have. But on the other hand, if you give too much of your company in the early stages to a venture capital, because initially your company's valuation is very less. So if at that point investors enter, they will take 50% of your company. And tomorrow they have a lot of money. So they can start dominating your entire vision, you will get sidelined. So that can be a challenge. So it is always advisable that at the initial stages, try and keep your that equity dilution to the minimum possible. So venture capital should come at a much later stage, and mostly investors actually try and invest in companies at a much later stage. And lastly, there are bank loans. Bank loan is again equity free, that is good, but then you have to pay interest, so that amount is there. So it depends on what you want and what you want to achieve. Now, the topic that would be more relevant for you people, academicians and entrepreneurship. So how can academicians be part of entrepreneurship?
Embedding entrepreneurial learning into education will help to prepare the next generation for the fast-changing economies. In a time of world economic crisis, national economies are faced with increased unemployment and business closures. Policymakers charged with preparing the next generation for success cannot work alone. A quick fix has been to encourage young people to start their own business by offering entrepreneur support programs. At the same time, a broader approach is needed to form an entrepreneurial culture that can flourish in hard times. This will solution is to make the entrepreneurship competence part of lifelong learning for all. This begins by building a common understanding among stakeholders. So, what does being entrepreneurially competent mean? Being able to identify opportunities and take initiative, recognize and manage risk, find creative solutions to problems, communicate successfully, manage resources, and be financially literate. Teachers need to be able to facilitate entrepreneurial learning, and entrepreneurship needs to be integrated in all subjects. Schools and communities open to innovation and reform need to work together. Small, tried, and tested ideas are as important as a conducive policy framework. The EU Entrepreneurship Competence Framework can be adapted and adjusted as a basis for reforms in each country. The ETF supports this through peer learning and exchange of good practice. The entrepreneurial agenda won't go anywhere without teachers being on board and trained. Businesses and schools need to work together. What we do now will create a better world for our children.
So basically, what I mean to say is that teachers play a very, very important role. It sounds very difficult when you look at a high level, but actually it is not that difficult. If you start taking one small step at a time and try to just imbibe that culture among your students, it catches up. So that is the kind of mindset that should be there in our academic institutes that can help motivate and trigger people around you. Because I feel that currently students are not sensitized enough because the community is risk averse. So taking that risk is very difficult, and putting that in your head that yes, I have to take this risk is a big challenge for them. So that kind of mindset should change. I mean, taking risks at an early stage is much easier. A student who is finishing his bachelor's, if that person goes and starts his company, he or she has a lot of time to actually build something big for them. And that is where industry and academia have to work together to bring this change. So how can academicians be part of entrepreneurship? There are four ways that I see. One is academician can quit their job or maybe retire and then start their own company, but that is not happening. that is very, very difficult. I understand that. Second is a spin-off entrepreneur. So this is a lot. This is something which is being done by a lot of academicians across India, and especially from the IITs. Spin-off entrepreneur, I'll be discussing in detail what it is. Spin-off entrepreneur means that the researcher, the idea has been started in the lab of that researcher or the faculty, and it actually goes to the prototype stage, from where maybe a student is taking it forward in the form of a company, or somebody else is taking it in the form of a company, and then faculty is part of that company. They have stakes in that company. Maybe they are not involved in the day-to-day functioning of the company, but since the idea and the actual design has been done in their lab, so they hold stakes in the company. If the company grows, they get royalty in return, or maybe whatever one-time payment kind of arrangement. So that is a very good way to go about. Second is create prototypes, license it out to industry for a one-time payment or for a royalty. And lastly, mentoring prospective students to become entrepreneurs. So here, no financial involvement, but just as a social, bringing a social change among people. So in all of these, again, like idea becomes important, because until and unless your idea has a market, until beyond that point, it is not possible to take that product forward. So if you can assure that at the first stage that the idea needs solving, then these arrangements are possible. So how to begin the journey? First and foremost, you need to promote creative thinking among your students. Tell them to go and attend various things, various events, various kinds of entrepreneurship competitions. There are so many competitions that are now being arranged, and government is actually trying to give a lot of support to startup and entrepreneurs. So there is a lot happening. So if they get sensitized, like in my case also, when I went out and actually attended these events, I saw saw what is happening around people. People my age are running companies, so that motivates you to go ahead. Second is identify problems that require solving in your field. Again, I'll be taking some examples ahead to help you with it. Next is validate the problem by actually talking to customers. So if that is added as part of the curriculum, nothing like it. If not, if you can do it, suggest your students to do it before they start their project, nothing like it. Next is design innovative projects or solutions around those problems, because you need to hold the IP for that. If you don't have the IP, you don't have any control over that product. Tomorrow you design a product and it goes out, you don't have IP over it. Then how do you, some company can come and take it. You don't have any control on preventing that from happening. Next is getting funding for the ideas through grants. So this is very important. Again, there is a lot of opportunity that has been going around. I'll be sharing some links where faculty can apply for funding options. And lastly, teaching students good record keeping practices once the project initiates, because that is where it lacks. When a company comes and tries to take the idea forward, there is no background data to support it. So record keeping is a must if you want to take or license it to the company. So these are a few points which I felt faculty can start including in their routine practice. Then startup resources, I should name it startup resources. It is basically different resources that are available for this kind of funding and support. So there is something called as the GDC Incubate program. It is an 8-week program organized by IIT Madras, and I have undergone that program. It is specifically for faculty, researchers and aspiring entrepreneurs in STEM universities. So their courses are for academicians specifically. So it's a very, very intensive program, 2-month program, but you will not believe the change that your mindset will have once you are through this program. So it is a program which constitutes one faculty with 4 or 5 students who would be part of designing a program idea. So you need to submit your applications with an idea that you want to pursue, and the faculty would be the lead, and the other students, there will be 4 or 5 students will be part of the team. So they will be attending the lectures and sessions, and you will be part of just the final discussions. So this is a very, very good program. If you can attend it, they have cohorts every 2 months. So you can just check out. I have shared the link here. So you can take advantage from them. A similar program is called as the Stanford Uh C Program. It is organized by the Stanford Business School. This is a more detailed program where they talk about the customer, their problems. They again teach you about value propositions, what is how to design a solution, partners, markets, growth, profit, business model, communication, and at the end they have a finale where you can pitch the ideas and you can win cash prizes. So this is a more extensive one, but it is a very, very good program, and you can actually put it in your CV as you are a Stanford Seed Program participant. So it holds a lot of value in the market. There are also programs organized by various universities. Every university have their own programs. Like this is just an example where this is organized by Stanford School again. They have a Spark program for translational research, so you can check them out. Then there are incubators and accelerators. So incubators basically come up in the early stages of a startup, while accelerators are more towards the later stages. So if you look at this. So in these stages, the yellow part you see, these are the areas where an incubator can help you with your startup, and the blue is the accelerator part. So basically an incubator helps you with the idea generation, seed stage funding, mentoring, and networking, helping you connect with different kinds of people. And acceleration stage where already your company is at a certain level, the market strategies and all, where accelerators help you. So these are a list of the business incubators in India. This is the complete list of the technology business incubators in India. You can access it through the links that I have provided below. The Startup India website also has very good information. If you just register with the Startup India site, you can get updates about the recent funding options that are available. You can get a lot of exemptions on IP related filings, and if you want some money for IP filing and all, that kind of options are also there. And what kind of events are happening in and around you, that kind of resources you can, this is a very good place to get good information related to funding opportunities, awards, grants, events, etc. And learning about new things that are happening in your domain. Then coming to early stage funding options, so there is again, like I mentioned, Startupedia website have a lot of funding options. Then the BIRAC website, they have very good funding, especially in the area of healthcare and agri. So there are they fund starting from early stage to late stage, to translational research, equity funding, social innovation. So for every kind of stage you are in, they have a different kind of funding option available. And even related to the type of work that you are doing, here also they have a lot of funding options. And before it used to be, a couple of years back, it used to be only for people who have registered startups, but now they have started it for faculty, individuals also. So they give you to the tune of around 50 lakh rupees you can get for your projects based on what kind of project. But yes, it has to be implementation based, it has to be customer centric. So if you can design that kind of ideas, you can get access to a lot of resources. Then there is the DST support, they have some small funding options. Now coming to the project proposal format, when you are writing a funding opportunity, for a funding opportunity, I think these titles would be you would be very familiar with this title because you people must have gone through various funding fund writing options. So I need not explain all this to you. But if you are writing, because the funding that I mentioned, those are all business funding opportunities. So there you have certain questions which as researchers we are not very familiar with, like customer and market. These are questions where you get stumped. Isme kya likhna hai abhi, pata nahi, because we are not familiar with the terms as such. So what is a customer and a market? So here you have to define your customer or segment. Now there is a difference between a user and a customer. So user is one who is going to use your product. That person might not be your paying customer. Like what the mistake that we used to do when we were writing proposals is, if somebody asked us who's your customer, we used to write hospitals. But as I said, hospital is a building. The hospital is not going to pay for anything. The customer is the person, administration in the hospital. So you have to write hospital administration and not hospital. So that is the difference. So paying customer may be the administrator of that hospital, but the user will be the doctor. So there the paying customer and the user are different. So you need to define that, and if in a academic proposal, if you write these things, the chances of your proposal being accepted is much higher, because people understand that you understand some things about business and taking your product forward. Next, coming to what is an addressable market. So addressable market means who is your target population. So like, for example, if I am talking about nanoparticles, say for example for COVID. So my target customers would be people who would be affected by COVID. But I cannot target my entire population. So my target market, there are different levels to that addressable market. One is the entire population, everybody can be affected. If I am working on something say related to maternal health, then my entire market would be all women in a particular age group. From there, I need to subdivide. How much percentage? I need to find statistics related to how many people are say affected, how many women are affected by anemia, for example. So if I get statistics around that, then that becomes my second level. That these are my target people whom I want to target. And then from that, I can, being a startup, I cannot target everybody at one point. So in my first year, I'll target 1% or 2% of that entire market. So that is how you arrive at an addressable market. Then there is value proposition. Value proposition is different from features. We tend to confuse and mix. We write features and value proposition. Value is basically what value you create for the customer. Features is related to your product. What features your product has. So that there is a difference between the two. So feature would be rapid testing in 2 minutes. But maybe requires less blood. That is a feature, but that is not a value. Value is saving time, cost, money, whatever. That is the value to the customer or end user. Next is novelty of the business idea. So there you need to talk about what is the USP of your product, who all are your competitors, how are you different from your competitors. Then commercialization and go-to-market strategy. So you need to describe the steps, what is the regulatory pathway, what kind of product you have, what kind of regulatory approvals you want, what is the licensing, production, market distribution. So for academic proposals, I think it is better to write that at the end of product development and prototyping, we will license it out to a complementary industry. That is the best way to stop it there rather than going into the loop. Then raising funds. What is your current funding status? So how much have you already raised for that product? And what is your future requirement? Because they want clarity on whether you know what is expected. How much money do you require to develop it? This is the first question that will be asked if you are accepted for next level of funding. And financial projections, where you have to project the revenue or profit projection for the next 3 to 5 years. That is based on how many customers you can sell to, and that will be multiplied by the cost of your product. So that year on year, first year it will be less, second year it can be some. So those percentages are just based on your understanding, 1%, 2%, how much you can target. You can give an estimate till 5 years. So these are things, I understand it is a little difficult when I am saying these things. Once you read about it, you can understand more about it. And lastly, please describe your team and their expertise in very, very detail. We tend to miss out on this, but the team plays a very important role. Try to show multidisciplinary skills in your team when you're writing a proposal, because that is what people appreciate. They are banking on your team. And the expertise that your team has to whatever you want to achieve as the end result. Now these are some areas which I felt which is relevant to the pharmacy field where ideas can be generated. One is formulation supplements and probiotics, because it is easy to get into the market, less stringent regulations. Pharmaceuticals is not, it's very difficult for a startup to invest in because there are a lot of testing that is required before you can actually launch your product. So these are some areas where faculty can actually work in. Second is medical products. Like this product called as Axiostat. This is nothing but a chitosan block. It has been used as a sealant, for bleeding, excessive bleeding, for trauma patients, for accident patients. So this is a very, very simple product, but it got approval. So these kind of things can be designed in the lab. It's not difficult. Then there are some products that I'll be talking ahead also, based on some case studies that faculty have actually done. And then there are cosmeceuticals, which is a very good area to work in. Extraction processes use raw materials which are waste for some company. Think of taking that raw material, converting into some useful byproducts. Then synthesis, again, I had given an example where one of my professors from ICT, he was working on phospholipid synthesis. So phospholipids, he designed various kinds of phospholipids and showed its application in designing various kinds of nanoformulations like liposomes. So those kind of excipient kind of synthesis can actually get a market, and the companies can take it forward. Then there are diagnostic kits, like I mentioned before. So these are areas which are allied to pharmacy, which can be explored. Lastly, I would be talking about some academic case studies in pharmaceuticals and allied sciences. So the first example is of the first kind of entrepreneur that I mentioned, who retired and then set up his own company with 3 more people. So the company is called C6 Energy, and this is one of the very first companies and the individuals which I met, who I really got very motivated with. You should go and check their story. It's a beautiful story. It is a must-visit read story. So they are the world's first ocean operating system. So when they had started, they were a team. He was the head. He was an adjunct professor at IIT Madras, and he was previously working for Biocon, and these were 3 BTech students at IIT Madras, and he discovered them. These people had gone to attend an entrepreneurship competition, and he was their mentor. And later when he saw these people had not realized the importance of that research. They had just gone as students to present. They won there, they got the first prize. But this person understood the importance of the work that they were doing. And then he invested all his retirement money into this company. And these people were happy with getting jobs and they were getting very good placements. Some were going abroad. There were 5 people actually initially. Some said, no, ye sab risky lena hai. These 3 stuck with this guy. And they started their company, and today they are one of the most sought after biotech companies. They have been, I think, in almost 10 years now. But they have done beautifully, and the way they have segregated into different kinds of areas. The thing they had started with, that has gone sidetracked. But when they went ahead, they saw so many opportunities that sprung up. I'll show you a short video. It is a very, very motivating company.
Humanity now consumes much more than the planet can replenish. In the last 45 years, the demand for Earth's natural resources has doubled. Just feeding the growing population is one of the challenges we will face in the coming decades. The world is experiencing the twilight of oil. Water continues to be the source of wars. The ravages to this planet are seen everywhere. And no, we don't have another planet to go to. Humanity has also showed us time and again that powerful intentions paves way for a new world.
Grow seaweed on water, and using that seaweed they will generate energy. But later, as they went ahead, they realized that growing seaweed and generating energy with that seaweed is impossible. It is not possible to replace other energy sources. But the kind of different applications that they found that their seaweed has applications in plant growth, as additives, as clean energy. So they thought that they will grow seaweed on water rather than, because there is limitation of soil available for growth. So
under this wide umbrella of making the world a better place, my co-founders and I started C6 Energy by coming up with this wild idea of making a farm on the seas for unlimited supplies of photosynthetic biomass, with a view to creating a carbon neutral replacement for fossil fuels. We've been extremely lucky that the biostimulant business, especially our flagship product, Agrogame, is a direct byproduct of our research to convert this into fuels. What's even more amazing is that the use of biostimulants not only improves crop yields, which is a big improvement towards food security, it also reduces fertilizer needs, which is a big improvement for the environment. Producing seaweed using the technologies that C6 Energy is developing can not only be a source of crude oil to power the world, it can also be a replacement for everything that is today derived from crude oil, like plastics and other organic chemicals. All of these can be potentially manufactured without adding the extra carbon dioxide to the atmosphere that we've been adding ever since coal and oil became the fuels to power the Industrial Revolution. Our team is dedicated to making these remarkable scientific probabilities not only technically feasible, but also commercially viable and globally scalable. It has to be of benefit to everyone and reach everywhere. After all, we live in a connected world.
So this person had a vision. Maybe the students did not understand that, but he understood that and he understood the power it had. And initially what they had started out, that did not succeed. But the kind of mindset he had of pivoting at a point, if things are not working, don't give up there. Pivot rather than giving up if you are sure that it can be worked out. So that is the kind of attitude and entrepreneurial mindset that I was talking about. So this is the first kind of example where he's a full-time entrepreneur. This is the second example, Dr. Rohit Srivastava, Professor of Biomedical Engineering. He's the second kind of entrepreneur, that is the spin-off entrepreneur. So his lab has given a lot of point-of-care diagnostic solutions. Some he has licensed to industry, some have been taken up by his students in the form of startups. He has also worked on tumor and cancer, where he has designed some treatments for oral cancer which does not require surgery. So the thing that we feel that cancer and all that kind of things cannot be worked on, he has even burst that bubble. That yes, it can be approached in a different way. So he has solutions for those, and these are few of the startup and spin-off companies from his lab. There's a company called as Biosense, CareNX, Dynasense, Mosen. So these are spin-off companies where he is part of he remains part of the company in some, and he has licensed out the technology to the company. The third is my guide and Professor Devrajan. So I have been very fortunate to have been mentored by her in this regard. And she is the third kind of entrepreneur. So she has licensed out a lot of technologies to companies. So this is one of the technologies that is called as Nano, which is a simple, affordable, revolutionary technology for nanoparticle preparation. And I had been fortunate enough to be part of this development during my PhD. So currently the work that I was doing is being carried forward by the next student. So if you take a look at the normal conventional nanoparticle preparation, where it has a lot of steps, you require a lot of complex machinery, and there are scale-up challenges associated with nanoparticles. On the other hand, instant nano is a very, very simple process where you just have to dissolve the drug and excipients in a common solvent, and then you go for sterile filtration, and you get this instant nano pre-concentrate, the solution, which is packed into pre-concentrate bottles. That is all. So this is a very, very simple process, and it is a scalable process. And this method, so basically the pre-concentrate is a solution. It is not a nanoparticle. So it completely bypasses the challenges that normal nanoparticles have in terms of stability, because you cannot keep nanoparticles under normal conditions for a long time. So I'll show you how it actually becomes a nanoparticle. So it's a patented technology, which has been, it's a platform kind of technology which has been proven with a number of drugs. So you can see there are two vials which are provided in the box that will be provided to the end user or whoever is diluting. This is the pre-concentrate bottle, and this is a 5% dextrose solution and a vial, a syringe. So the user just needs to take out the pre-concentrate in the syringe, and add it to the 5% dextrose vial. And the nanoparticles are ready to inject. So this is the SEM of these particles to get uniform size nanoparticles with very high target entrapment efficiency. So this process seems very simple, but believe me, this optimization to get this solution which can actually give you optimized, reproducible result every time, it takes a lot of efforts, and it doesn't work for every drug. So we have optimized that process for a few drugs, which some of them have been successfully licensed to companies. So the value that this kind of a technology has is biological, because it can be targeted, it will have all the advantages of a normal nanoparticle. Technological, because it is simple, scalable, commercially exploitable. Third is cost, because the process is so simple, it doesn't require any complex machinery. So overall the cost of nanoparticles, which is supposedly a very, very expensive product, can be brought down significantly. This is one of the products that is called Go and Trap. It is Boparbocone nanoparticles, which have been prepared by the same technology. So this product is currently in the market, and it is being licensed, it is being marketed by a company called Selfie. It is being used for treatment of filariasis in cavities. This is another product that has been designed in our lab. which is called as Normality. It is not related to the nanoparticle technology. This is basically more of a polymer solution. So this is again for treatment and prevention of mastitis in cattle, where animals, when after milking, their teats have milk drops and water, and once they sit on the floor, it gets contaminated because of the external dirt that is there. And the next time the milking is done, if mastitis, if the cow gets infected in the teats, the milk that comes out is again infected. So for this solution Novartis was designed. It is a polymer solution, simple adhesive polymer. So after milking, you just have to wash the teats, dip it in this Novartis solution. It immediately, instantaneously forms a adhesive coating on the teat of the animal. And once the person sits, the cattle sits, the teats will be protected because of that barrier coating. And before milking the next time, you just have to wash it with water, and entire teat will come out in the form of a polymer plug, and the milking can be done. So this is another product that she has marketed, and there are many others that I have not mentioned here. So this is what happens, like if you actually think that these are areas that you can work on, then sky is the limit, anything is possible. You have students with you whom you can assign projects to. You will be the think tank and they will be the hand initially, and if they are motivated enough, who knows, tomorrow something can work out for both of them. So overall, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster ride, and when we are starting, we are very high, very excited, excited about, hey, we'll do this. Then your family and friends also put in money. Yes, something good is going to happen. But slowly you start realizing that there are a lot of things when you start talking to customers, when you need money. There are times you want to quit because it's not happening. You feel that you cannot do this. But if you stick through these lows, then by the end, success is yours, and it is overall a fun journey. When you go back and think about it, you will feel that yes, this journey was worth taking. With this, I come to an end to my presentation with a very beautiful quote that a power of a teacher is beyond what you can realize. Because I have met wonderful teachers in my life who have affected my career and my growth, and I am really thankful to them to have met those people who have influenced me in such a way. So I believe that teachers can influence, they have a lot of power to influence students, and because students have not seen the world. So you need to be their eye, and you need to show them that there is a world waiting for you, and if you have the talent and if you have the desire to do it, then sky is the limit. Whether it is entrepreneurship or whether it is anything else. So if that can happen, and if industry and academia can come together, then I think there is lots to be achieved. So with this, thank you so much to all the team from AES for having me here, for giving me this opportunity to share my learning and experiences. And I have shared my details here. If anybody wants to reach out, I'll be happy to do that if I can be of any help for anybody. With this, thank you so much, and if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to address those.
So before moving to the question answer session, I would like to summarize the session. So it's really very inspirational, informative, and we can say the very new learning to all academicians related to this entrepreneurship journey. So I will go through the summary. So ma'am, you made us realize that academician can also bring change to the world by entering into such startup. Even this entrepreneur have power to revolutionize the world. Journey, you also explain about your journey to become an entrepreneur. How you see the problem as an opportunity, and from that opportunity you generated the idea and you become a successful entrepreneur. As like you stand alone from the crowd. Like after PhD, most of the student enters into the job. but after PhD you started your new firm and started with your journey, and now in this line you are at one of the successful entrepreneur. You also spoke about the startup and entrepreneurship. What is the difference between small business and startup? How what is the rank of India in world related to the startup? Third largest. How many startups we are having in India? How many jobs provided by these startups? Apart from that, you explain about what are the different types of startup, like unicorn startup, healthcare startups, how this COVID problem gave us the opportunity to enter into this startup. Then you spoke about why entrepreneurship is important, what is entrepreneurship, what kind of the entrepreneurship mindset should have to start with the startup, and after that mindset, how you will achieve your goal, so how to begin, what is design thinking process, startup ecosystem, steps to start these startups, the various components of these steps you explain very well so that we know the knowledge related to the startup process, design and prototyping, what is business plan, startup incorporation, how to raise the fund, because that is the most important hurdle in the startup journey. So different types of the funding like bootstrapping, incubator, crowdfunding, angel investor, venture capital, bank loan and all. You explain us. Academician and entrepreneurship, how they can be a part of such a, how they will become an entrepreneur, what are the different ways to become an entrepreneur. What are the startup resources available, like GDC Incubate program, Stanford Seed program, various university programs are there. What is incubator, accelerator, how they will help us, and at what stages they will help us. Different list of the business incubator, even you take us through the Startup India website and how this website will help to start the startup by give the funding opportunity, even new learning from this website will get. Apart from that, you also spoke about the different funding options like Startup India, BIRAT, TST. Even you also mentioned how to write the project proposal. And then what are the new areas in the pharmaceutical world, and different case study like C6 energy, biosense, CarNX. So many things we got through your talk. Very inspirational, informative, and thank you once again. So with this summary, I would go to the next session, question answer session. So if any participant have any question, you can ask.
Thank you, madam, for such a very inspirational talk. I have many questions, but I'll start with one. With the technical knowledge that we gain through PhD and other BPharm and Pharm, I would like you to focus on how did you manage to write about financial projection and fundraising for your company project. I mean, that is one part which we don't focus on when we do our technical knowledge during our entire pharmacy course.
Very true, because when, like I mentioned, when we were ending our PhD, we had practice of writing project proposals. So some things we knew, but that is why I specified on the second slide where we were talking about customers, and that was where we always used to get stumped. Like brain used to stop functioning only. Like you have Google to search, but then I don't know, somehow we did not understand that. So what we did was at that point, we started reaching out to people we knew who have done their MBAs or who are working, who have knowledge at least of telling us what that jargon means. Because as researchers, when you talk about your technical things, other person feels that it is a jargon. They might not understand it. Similar thing happens with us also. So it is important that one is you have to read it yourself. There are a lot of resources available. Read about it, then go and talk to people about it who already have done it. Then you can get a basic idea And based on that idea, again go back and read. Then you will start connecting the dots. Because when we read without any background, then we don't understand it. But when we have a background and then go and read it, then you start understanding it. And as initially our project proposals used to be good, but the financial parts used to be kachra. Some business person you would have seen, he would have committed suicide seeing those things. But as we started writing more and more proposals, see, practice makes you perfect. So as you start writing more and more proposals, you start getting more and more understanding of what you are trying. So the first time we designed, wrote about the market, the customer, and like I said, I had written customer, we had written hospital. And when we attended the GDC workshop, that was the first lesson that we were taught, customer is not a building, he is a person. So that is the basic thing. So more and more you expose yourself to relevant people, relevant events, relevant sessions, you will hear more, because this was a very, I would say this presentation was a bird's overview, because I did not have a pinpointed place to start with. So I tried to cover whatever was there. Now in these things you need to go deep, dig deep, because I have a broad audience. I do not know whether you want to be entrepreneurs, whether you are faculty who do not want to be entrepreneurs. So I try to give you everything. From this, take what is important for you and go and study about relevant things in that. So I have given some links related to, if you want to know about the customer, if you want to know about the terms you just mentioned about, those things have been covered in these programs like the GDC Incubate program, the Stanford Uh C Program. They give you things. If you don't want to go through such detailed programs where you have to spend a lot of time and you're just looking to understand those things, then you can go and read about it and talk to relevant people. You can reach out to people, people are ready to help. Today, if you are afraid to reach out, then you are being foolish on your end. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या होगा, रिप्लाई नहीं करेंगे, यही होगा ना, अटेम्प्ट करने में क्या जाता है. So you reach out to them. People are very helpful. They will help you out, at least to understand the basics. Maybe they cannot give you too much time, but they may guide you with some relevant literature where it would be easy to break it down and for you to understand. At least till for the proposal writing part, it can be very well done.
My second question is, angel investors are only for startups or small business also?
Angel investors are for everybody. But angel investors, there are some angel investors for startups, because startups are generally risky ventures. So if the product development is not complete, till that point, generally investors do not invest in a company because they don't have proof of anything for a startup. They come in at a later stage when you have something to show. Maybe you have some 10 customers. Even if you have some customers to show for, that is the time where investors step in. And that is the case for small businesses also. Investors invest in any kind of business. They are not worried about the business, they are worried about the profits. So if they are putting in money, they need to see returns.
Where do you find these angel investors?
You have to reach out. That is where networks help you. Because like we are in a incubator. We are now company is incubated in Sign. So I have mentorship around my related field, whether when I'm working in the area of healthcare or medical devices. So I have a network of people to fall back on whom I can reach out to. And then you can search them also. See, angel investors can be anybody. They are basically wealthy people who are ready to put in money on companies. So there are some known angel investors like you have Wipro, you have Infosys, you have other big companies who have their CSR wings who invest in small companies. There are smaller angel investors also who are individuals basically who put in money. So again, that you have to search for networks. You have to reach out to people, and you can search online also. There are a lot of options. Depends on the business you are in, the kind of business you are looking for, what kind of business it is. So based on that, you have to identify the people who fund that kind of business.
Thank you so much.
Any other question?
Very informative session, ma'am. Very much thank you. And I would like to ask the question related to the incubator center.
So under which your company is affiliated for that, which incubator center currently in Mumbai? And the second thing, how much time will require to accelerate your company as you can you just tell me the prediction time, how much it will take for you?
We are currently incubated at SINE, IIT Bombay. So it is one of the oldest incubators in India. And we have started last year. So since our product is a little technology intensive, so initially the product development cycle is a little long. Because of COVID and all, we had some other plans also to start off parallelly. But because of COVID, those things could not be worked out. But now we are actively looking at things. For the products that I have mentioned, the medical devices that we are working on, diagnostic devices, one is almost near completion. So that product will move into trials by the end of this year. So hopefully by the early next year, the product will be ready with for certifications and all. So once that is done, then the acceleration phase will start. And related to other products, like if you have simple products which can be taken, not related to our company, I'm just giving you an example. If they are more simpler products which have lesser time to market, go to market. Say for example, you have a new design kind of a thing. Say you have seen those blood collection things that 1 mg people carry. If you see, before it used to be just a syringe. Now they have that syringe, they attach something to it to hold the blood collection tube. So it is basically a design. There's nothing to prove in that. It is just a holder which will protect the tube from shifting once the tube is once the syringe is inside your hand. So that kind of a product is a simple device. It doesn't have any kind of technical complexities. So such products, if you design, then it will easily go into market within a short period of time. And that is where observation and curiosity comes into picture. Because whoever might have designed that, he might have seen that when you insert a needle inside the vein, sometimes person shifts, the needle comes out. So he has put that additional fixture. It is costing the M1MG person to bring that thing, but it must be that is actually adding some value. So those products can move into the market very fast. You design it within 1 year, 1.5 years, you can get all the approvals, and within 1.5 years you can move into the market. But in our case, it is, since like I mentioned, it is a little technology intensive project, so it has taken us, so last year we started, so it has taken us almost 2 years to reach the product, the prototyping stage, finish the prototyping stage.
How do these incubation centers will help you in the financial method of basically how much percentage of that?
So initially when we joined, we were on a pre-incubation kind of setup. So there is something called as pre-intubation where you are given some 2-3 months or 6 months depending on the incubator, the rules and regulations of the incubator. So that period they observe you. So there are 2 ways. One is incubator will not accept you. Whoever goes to them, they will not give incubation. Either they will have their own evaluation criteria, they will have some rounds, they have 2-3 rounds. In case of SINE, they have 2 or 3 rounds of technical evaluation, business evaluation, and they will check you whether they can give you incubation. And second is, if you already have a funding in hand, then it is much easier to get into the incubator because then you have already cleared 1 round of screening. That technically and business feasibility kind of thing has been established because the funding body has given you the funding to develop it. So one thing is done. So since we had the funding, so we went to them, we approached them, we want incubation at your center. So they then evaluated our idea and our proposal. They had an internal evaluation and then they gave us pre-incubation. Then they observe your development in that pre-incubation stage. If they are okay with it and if you want to proceed for incubation after that, then initially after incubation they give you somewhere around some seed amount, some 5 to 10 lakh rupees you can get from the incubator to help you develop whatever you are working on. And after that stage, they will help you with mentoring, networking, facilitating that, giving you facilities. So rentals, like in Mumbai, if you take a space outside, it's very expensive. So you will get rentals that are more subsidized. It's not very cheap, but it is at a subsidized rate, considering you have everything in that building. You have access to their labs, to all the labs in IIT Bombay. You can get their facilities. You have to pay for these facilities, but at a much subsidized rate. So those are the help that the incubator does, but in return, incubators take some percentage. You have to pay, once your company is successful, you have to pay back some percentage. They have different terms and conditions. So whichever model you agree to, you have to pay back after you are successful. You have already launched your product and earning revenues.
Any more question?
With your permission, I just wanted to share with you that is BS College of Pharmacy we have started as Madam Master told also initially. The incubation center just next to our building, already 3 floors are ready. So anytime, like in the future, if you need any help, we are there to help you out. Okay. Just one more thing I just wanted to share with you regarding Madam was telling about big grant and all. So our 2013 or 2015 passed out student, few of you might also be knowing her, Miss Ruchi Singh. She also got that grant. She was working in DIPSA for that. And earlier student, Dr. Chaitali Surve, madam's student, she got a grant, big private grant, and she was working in KIT. They were the collaborators. So when the students and the faculty and everybody, they work in coordination and they write the proposal, taking into consideration all the factors and the probability how much it will get implemented, it really works out. Okay, so those are the stories, real story, because you know our college started in 2007. And then also the lead that have been taken, of course, under the guidance of our principal madam, that is having the big pilot and having this one of the undergraduate or PG student being our entrepreneur and giving jobs to others. So that was really motivating, of course, for all of us. And I'll just extend, since all the question and answers are over, just to share something unofficially was. I always feel proud to be an ICTN, and she might be my super junior. And earlier actually we had approached Padma madam to be the speaker for the session, but somehow madam is traveling and she couldn't make it out. So for some other replacement, it happened that we were searching out for the similar, the session really. And we were fortunate enough to have Saugandha last with us. And as you know, the CV when it was being read, it was highly motivating that the amount of the work that she has done till now, it is really very motivating. And earlier also Padma madam was here for our annual lecture series we have each year. And even Rajeshri Shinde, you know, she has worked on that mastitis and that particular example. And I just wanted to share with you that time what madam had told, that is when the research is going on, we have got a frame of okay, microemulsion, these. But then that student came running to her telling her that madam, I am getting some gel in between. And that is if we are the not regular thing, not out of the box, okay, this is not what we are looking at. We want microemulsion liquid transparent thing. But when she came up with that gel structure, that was something out of the box thinking, and that led to actually with that innovation, as I remember what madam had discussed there. So that is what, that when we are as a guide also are orienting or guiding our students, we also think out of the box. If something is going out of the box, just look at that. What is that and how that can also be beneficial maybe in some other conditions. Okay. So that is what actually I wanted to share. Thank you.
Just to add to madam, when like you mentioned about the microemulsion, what happened for my during my PhD. So there was, like I mentioned, there was one project which was giving me all negative results. So and that was almost at the end of my, everything had been done. I was doing the animal studies at that time for that part of my project. And during the animal studies, my animals were dying. So I was, as soon as I was injecting the animals, so I was really afraid to tell this to madam, because I was thinking, why take one entire project to just go, because I have nothing to show. If the animals are dying, then what do I show for that? So then I thought there's nothing I can do about it. Not even one animal is alive. So I went to madam. I told her about this, that this is what is happening. And there are many times, when we are doing the studies and when you start seeing results, you get an inkling that something is not right. When I was doing my in vitro studies, that time also I was getting some indications, but I was overlooking those indications and I was thinking कि अच्छा ठीक है ये standard error में चला जाएगा या जो भी. But when I saw the animal results, I was sure that what I was seeing was actually an indication of what happened. But still I could not explain that why my animals were dying after injection. And the pattern was very, very clear that as soon as I was injecting, they were getting shocks and seizures and then the animal was dying. It was not just simple and they were having difficulty in breathing, the animals. So I went and told this to madam and I was nearing my end. It was almost crazy and I was supposed to write my papers and all. So I was thinking, what do I do? I have only 2 parts to show now. Third part I cannot mention. What do I mention in that? So I told her. So ma'am said, okay fine, let us do one thing. We'll mention till the in vitro part and we'll mention that this happened with the animals, but try and find out why the animals died. We tend, whenever what happens, this is a general tendency that when we get negative results, we tend to overlook it. We try to put it under the rug. कि छोड़ो इसको साइड में रखते हैं, जो अच्छा आ रहा है वो दिखाते हैं. But believe me, the best findings come when you dig deeper into the negative results, why that happened. And that is what happened. Madam told me 2-3 times. I was in so much pressure at that time that I was writing my paper, I was leaving that out. Again, when madam was checking my paper, she told me that what happened, why did those animals die. So then I went back, I started, and then I had to write my thesis also. So I had to give a conclusion as to why my animals, something I have to write. So when I started reading about it, then I realized that there was a beautiful mechanism that was going on which was causing the deaths. Since nanoparticles, like you understand, they have a tendency to escape a lot of roots. So we realized that what was happening was as soon as I was injecting, it was having very high macrophage uptake, which was my area of work. I wanted to provide high macrophage uptake because my disease was macrophage targeted. It was an infectious disease. So and that I was seeing from my in vitro results, that the macrophage uptake, because of my targeting ligand, was increasing multifolds. But when I was injecting it to animals, animals were dying. So what we realized was what was happening was macrophage targeting was happening, but the liver, since liver has the maximum number of macrophages, they were taking up the nanoparticles to such an extreme level that the liver was becoming incompetent to take any more. And then this second targeting organ, that is the lung, is the second organ which has the maximum number of macrophages. It was basically diverting the nanoparticles to the lungs, and that is where it was choking the animal and the animal was dying. So this is a mechanism which I found related to my drug when I started reading about it, that even liposomes in some patient cases, the amphisome liposome has shown this kind of effects in humans, in human trials. And those were very few reports because generally liposomes are considered safe. So when I found those reports, I could actually understand what was happening in my case. Because of the excessive targeting, this kind of bypass mechanism was happening. So that is why I feel that this negative results should be looked into details.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So now I request respected Rajeshri Director Madam to felicitate Dr. Saugandha Madam by giving memento and certificate as a token of appreciation.